Hello everyone and welcome to a review of the RCA TV Joypad console. To make it short, let's just call it the RCA plug and play, since that's what this is. Basically, you have a bunch of games that are built right into this controller here, and all you need to do is put some batteries in, plug the AV cables into your TV, hence the term plug and play, and that's all there is to it. When I was younger, I had a couple of these things, some of which were good, others not so good, but all of them were Christmas gifts from my relatives for the simple fact that I love video games. And I think that's how most of these things are bought. Grandparents or whoever go to the stores and see something like this advertising a shit ton of games, and they think it's better than buying a copy of whatever game you actually want, which is depressing. Anyway, let's get on to the review. The controller itself kind of resembles the one for the Dreamcast, and for some reason I've noticed more of these plug-and-plays using a very similar design to this one. Is it because it's easier to put games into? I have no idea. From left to right we have the analog that feels a bit crap and can be pressed down like the analogs on modern systems. The only difference here is that it doesn't do anything. Then we have the directional pad that's just a big chunk of plastic, the start and select buttons, A, B, and turbos, and the last thing is the power button. I bought this thing from Goodwill for 50 cents, which explains why the wires are exposed here at the top, but hey, it still works, as you'll see right now. So here's the main menu screen, and I forgot to mention earlier, this thing has a total of 30 games on it. But before we look at any of the games, I need to bring up two things. First, I'm only going to be reviewing half of the games listed just because if I don't, this video is going to be more than 20 minutes long, and I'd like that not to happen. The other thing is that you'll see a blue box saying 1080p at 50 Hz towards the top left of your screen. Ignore that, it's from the converter box I used to help record this thing with. Every time I hit the reset button, which I incorrectly called the select button earlier, that message will pop up, so yeah. To start things off, we have Space Castle. Oh look, a title screen with a sort of mushroom thing on top of what appears to be a plane? Alright, so what's the game like? Well, it's just Space Invaders. When you beat a level, all that happens is the background changes color, and the enemies get a slight bit harder. That's it. Next we have Sea War. It's that one game that's pretty much on every single plug and play, where you control the submarine, or in this case, a battleship at the top, and you drop bombs on the enemy below. Is it just me, or do the ships resemble fish in a way? Nothing else to really talk about with this one, unfortunately, so moving on. Bean's Adventure. Here you play as a yellow Kirby. I guess this is supposed to be Bean, I'm not sure. And you have to get the red ball into the treasure chest. At least, I think that's what it is. The catch is that the balls have weight to them, so if you remove the green stuff, the balls will fall down to whatever's below it. Oh, and pressing B kills yourself and restarts the level. Yeah, that's nice. Blockout. Ever hear the game Brickout? This is the exact same thing except with incredibly monotonous sound effects, which for some reason I'm only just pointing out now. Basically every single game has monotonous sound effects that are recycled throughout this entire system, and I'll show you what I mean right now. Golden Arrow. As you can probably tell, this is an archery game. The longer you hold onto the A button, the higher the angle you fire the arrow at. You also have to take wind into consideration as well. The closer you are to the bullseye, the more points you get. Simple concept, and you know what? Of all the games so far, this is the only one I wouldn't have a problem playing again. Sure, it's no Ratchet & Clank or Forza, but for what it is, I kinda like it. Ball Clash. This is just dodgeball. I think, you know what, I'm not even sure because you can hit a dude 100 times and get hit once or even not at all and still apparently lose. How do you win? Good question. I don't know. Here's Fish Catcher. You press the button to catch the fish, simple as that. If you grab a black fish which kinda looks similar to the missile things in Super Mario World, then you lose a life. The graphics of this one are surprisingly much better than any of the other games so far. Maybe they took more time on this one, who knows. Either way, this game ain't that bad. A little boring, but once you get to the harder levels, it's actually pretty decent. Up next, this is Grass Cutter. I can't even believe I'm gonna explain this, but you control a guy cutting grass, and you have to mow the entire lawn to move on to the next level. Yeah, fun. Every so often, a rain cloud will come by and grow just one square of grass. Why just one square? Because why not? Let's move on. Jewel Master. It's a clone of the Sega game Columns, but hey, let's look on the bright side of this. I like Columns, so I don't mind this game, other than the horrible graphics, of course, and the music that just seems to go on forever. Speaking of the music, remember earlier how I said they recycle the same sound effects over and over? They do the same thing with the music too. Insect Chase. In this game, you control a butterfly net, I guess, and the goal is to catch butterflies to move on to the next level. Each time you catch one, on the bottom it says, you get it. Right. Once you hit level 2, you start to come across bees and other insects, but if you catch them, you lose a life. Not sure why they didn't just call it Butterfly Chase then, since after all, that's the only insect you can catch. Maybe that makes too much sense or something. Here we have Last Cabra, or Cabra. Not sure how that's pronounced. Well, it's a top-down shooter, the only one in the entire system, which is very surprising, since I've noticed plug-and-plays seem to always have an abundance of games like this. And as far as typical plug-and-plays go, this one is actually pretty alright, except for one very, very annoying thing. Enemies spawn directly on top of you. Thanks, programmers. Pinball Track. Here you control a ball and your goal is to reach the end of the track to get to the next level. Sounds simple, right? Well, there's two things that make this difficult. One, the controls aren't like the other games. If you simply tap up, down, left, or right on the directional pad, it'll always go that way until you press to go in another direction. Now, that ain't too bad. However, on the track, there are black holes that blend right into the background. If you run into them, you lose and have to start all over. Once you reach the next level, the track changes color and the holes no longer blend in, which you'd assume makes it much easier, right? That's what I thought up until this happened. Fantastic. Either way, I had no place to go because if you look closely, all of the holes are in the same position as the other areas on the track, minus the one I went past, obviously. I don't like this game at all, possibly my most hated one in the entire system. Runner Car. Nothing fancy about this one. All you do is you drive a car, avoiding other cars and objects while picking up fuel and trying to get a higher score. Notice anything odd yet? Why, the background repeats itself. What's funnier is that if you position yourself just right, you can see part of the house on the bottom and top of the screen. Obviously not much time or thought went into making this one, huh? Next up, we have Go Bang. I'm not sure, in fact I'm probably wrong, but is this supposed to be the board game called Go? I mean, it has the name Go in the title, but I can't really trust the programmers whatsoever. I don't know how to play this game, but from what I can tell, it seems to be a version of Connect 5, where you can place the pieces anywhere on the board. There's two difficulties in this as well, easy and hard. I couldn't tell a difference since the computer destroyed me on every single game I played. But oh well. Garden Maze. You know, I remember playing a version of this on Tiny Toon Adventures for the Super Nintendo. Basically, what you have to do is move around the ground pieces to make a path to the next level, but you have to be careful not to connect the pieces to any areas where the enemy could come into contact with you, or else you'll die. Or whatever you want to call this. Anyway, I really enjoy this game. It brings back a lot of good memories. Now that brings us to my final thoughts on this RCA plug-and-play system. The controller itself is a bit crap, and so are roughly 80% of the games. The rest are just decent, and I did actually manage to enjoy a couple of them, like Garden Maze, Golden Arrow, and Jewel Master. But here's the thing. 2 of those 3 games I enjoyed happen to be clones from other games, and that's something I noticed as I was making this video. Maybe half, if not more, of the games on this system happen to be poor man copies from other popular titles. For example, Space Castle is Space Invaders, Blockout is Brickout, Submarine War is Battleship, and Dragonfire is Centipede. Sure, I could have talked more about how bad the graphics were or the music and sound effects, but generally, that's kind of how all plug-and-plays are. Of course, there are exceptions to that, however, it's kind of rare. But who knows, maybe one day I'll come across one of these exceptions and I'll show you. But till then, that brings this review to a close.